Perfect.
Wonderful.
Here we are.
Wow. Day 2, at first. Fabulous. There's a lot of people here. It's huge. Fabulous.
Yeah, it's great to see lots of people here.
Very nice to see lots of people here.
We need to introduce ourselves a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. After you.
So, I'm Ollie Shayer. I'm the Omni-Media Director at Boots. So I look after 2 parts of Boots. One part is I look after all of our core media, so all of our media that Boots buy, and I also look after Boots Media Group, so the retail media network for Boots.
Cool. Thank you. I'm Hugh Stevens, and I'm the Managing Director of LiveRamp in the UK. My role really is to partner with great brands and clients like Ollie, as well as the media agencies, data partnerships that we have in order to enable connectivity of data wherever our clients and brands want to use it, really, in an addressable fashion. If you'd like to come and see us, we're on T60. I've got to get that plug in, otherwise my marketing director will leave me later with a bad note. But what I wanted to start with, and we're going to have a brief conversation here with Ollie. Ollie, 2 years ago, we both kind of joined our respective businesses.
Yeah.
And I think, back then we saw a pretty different world, actually.
Yeah.
And there's been quite a lot of change in that time. We've obviously been working very closely with you, but I think in the more sort of, wider world, the consumer has become more challenged in their disposable income. We've certainly seen sort of the impact of spend from the sort of consumer crisis, interest rates and all of that sort of stuff. I suppose really what I wanted to know is like how's that impacting your priorities?
Yeah.
And what are you doing to be successful as you move forward as Boots?
Sure. Yeah, so as you said, I mean, it's been, Hugh and I almost joined our separate companies on the same week. I think we met on the first week of both joining. And the 2 years has been a massive change, I think, not only in the macroeconomics, but also in the work that we're doing together, and I think the kind of role and prevalence of first-party data. I think just on the kind of, from a marketing perspective in the macroeconomics, I think, honestly, we go back to the customer. So I think, look, it is a tough time out there. I think if things that are happening in the market are affecting the consumer massively. And I think what we've done at Boots is we've really looked at the customer and understood what really matters to them. And of course, things like value really matters to them, but the way in which we deliver that value has changed massively. So we have Advantage Card. It's been a huge part of Boots for over 25 years. But actually what we've done is evolve that. So rather than allowing people to collect points regularly, what we were told by our customers, we're seeing in the data, is they want instant reward. They want that reward now because they want the value now. And so we've adjusted the program to allow that to happen. We launched Price Advantage, which has allowed that to happen more readily. And I think that's the big thing for us, which is to utilize the data they have, the knowledge that we have, see what the customer wants, and kind of be able to then react to that.
And when you mentioned, obviously, the loyalty card program, through that, what you can capture from a data point of view, from knowledge of how your consumers are engaging and spending with you, must be significant. How have you gone about utilizing that more formally across more of your marketing program? And why do you see that as being truly valuable in the way that Boots is going to move forward?
Sure. I probably could talk for an hour on this, but I'll keep quite bright.
I'm conscious the clock hasn't started,
so we've got a bit more time.
You may have longer.
So I think the key thing on it is, I think, as I said, Boots has got a really rich heritage in customer data, a really strong understanding of who our customers are, what they're shopping, the life stage that they're at. And I think that piece has been incredibly valuable. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. I can talk about, third-party deprecation. I think the advancements that we've had in kind of first-party activation, these things have been a massive part of the kind of evolution that we've been working on. I think the key thing for me is that when I joined Boots, we roughly used about 5% of our first-party data in our media activation. Today, it's about 60%. And we see that will increase. And I think what the evolution of the first-party data is, and Hugh and I talked about this a lot, is at the moment what we're doing is a lot of activation. So we're connecting first-party data into multiple media platforms. We connect at the moment into about 40 different platforms that we can take Boots' data into and actually then connect through LiveRamp to enable us to kind of reach audiences, custom audiences that we build. I think the evolution of that is the big following is the planning and insight that comes from that. So we've done a lot of the activation, but actually the future looks at how do you utilize that data to understand the customer even better, and therefore tailor the advertising even further for what you're doing, but also plan much more broadly for what we're doing. And we're seeing a lot more of that. We see that both on the Boots side, and we're also seeing that on the Boots Media Group side. So a lot more activation of first party than we were doing probably 2 years ago, and equally also the evolution of how we're probably using that data.
We've obviously practiced very well because you mentioned Boots Media Group there, and that's
Yes.
Absolutely leading into what I was going to ask you next. And I suppose really, as a retailer that 2 or 3 years ago kind of started on this journey of developing both an on-site and off-site proposition from a digital media point of view, and how you're taking that to market. What would you say to retailers who are thinking about developing that type of strategy now from the learnings that you've taken over the last couple of years? And I appreciate that by no means is this complete. It's an ongoing project.
I think it's interesting. So I was talking about this yesterday, and I said, if you look 2 years ago, I was saying, use the analogy that I said to my dad, I've got this great job, Dad, and I'm going to work in retail media. And he was like, oh, right, does that mean you're going to put like shippers in store, Ollie? And I was like, well, no, Dad, it's actually quite different to that. And I think where you look at the evolution of it, like retail media has exploded as an interest, and there's an enormous amount of hype about it. So if you look at even Cannes 2 weeks ago, if you look at here, retail media is now a really key agenda point that people are interested in. And I think my key thing on this is you have to balance what's the hype of retail media. So regularly my CEO and my CMO send me fantastic articles that say retail media is going to be more than TV in the next 2 years. And I think the key reality is it is a huge growth opportunity in a growth area. But you can't get sucked into the hype. It also goes back to the customer, because it's all fueled by data. And the customer gives us their data with the value exchange that comes from that. And therefore, if you don't respect that and we utilize that in the wrong way, I think what happens is we're going to damage trust, which is going to damage data as a key element of your business. So I think what you see for retailers is data is becoming effectively one of the key tenets of their business for growth for the future. And I think, therefore, you have to be really careful with how you do it. So I think my advice for any retailer who wants to get into it is an incredibly exciting space is, I think, find the right partners to work with that you want to work on who understand the space really, really well. We work incredibly closely with SMG, who's a key partner with us on it. And I think also think about what you're trying to do and what's right for your customer and what the value exchange is for that, because you can be seduced by the opportunity and the headlines and the money that's available, but actually the reality is there's a lot more that sits behind it.
You mentioned obviously the Boots loyalty program. It's one of the oldest in the UK, going on for many decades now. You also mentioned the new pricing model that you've followed.
Yeah.
How have you seen the growth in the data that you've got there, and how that's kind of impacting the business? Sorry, it's just slightly following on from what you were just saying there.
Yeah, so I definitely think, I think what we've seen is, so the growth in kind of customers signing up for Advantage Card has been quite significant since we launched Price Advantage. I think that, customers want to share their data. They want to also be part of our program because they see the value exchange that it gives to us. And we've really seen a significant increase since we launched the program. And not just in that, but also in the app. So the app is a huge part of the growth of the future of Boots. And we've seen also really significant levels of growth in that area as well. So I think, again, it just goes back to if you're really understanding what the customer wants and you're offering them what they want, I think there's a willingness to exchange that data to enable that to happen. And they want personalization. It's an absolute, they expect it. I think there's a study by McKinsey, like 75% of customers expect brands now to personalize. So I was telling Hugh an anecdote earlier. I go to the same hotel when I come to London every single time. Every time I go in there, they say to me, "Oh, it's nice to see you, Mr. Chair. Have you been here before?" And you're like, "My God, I've been here like 18 times. It'd be nice if you actually knew that I'd been here." So I think it's that kind of personalized, it's that kind of experience that you have that customers want and they expect now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of the key way in which you're able to execute on that is collaboration internally to make that happen. So when you think about what you've had to go through as an organization to kind of, I suppose, build confidence to enable data, not only for your own first-party marketing and to do the 60% type numbers that you were talking about as how your media is informed and activated and then measured. What are the the key nuggets that you would take away from how you've navigated internal stakeholders? People sending you, retail media is going to grow by X% and what have you. How have you got your internal stakeholders on board and all aligned to this vision of both your own marketing as Boots, but then also within Boots Media Group?
Yeah, I think probably say it's two parts. I think the hype around it is also very helpful. because in actuality, there's a lot of interest from the C-suite on what's actually going to happen in the retail media space. And so therefore, it's helpful because it's on the agenda, it's something that's of interest. I think the other big thing for me is we've been really heavily focused on understanding the effectiveness of it, so the measurement element of it, and being really clearly able to create a case that showcases the value that first-party data drives in driving increased performance for Boots, whether that's on the Boots side or whether that's on the Boots Media side. And I think those kind of two things together have been really helpful. And I think it's just the level of engagement for what we've been trying to do. So I think it's really, ultimately when we go and see the CFO, what he wants to understand is what's the return, Ollie, you're going to give me for the investment that you're asking for, whether that's into technology, whether that's into infrastructure, whatever it is. And I think being able to do that effectively has really been a massive helper for us to understand it. And I think we've also been on a journey, So my team is here, who I work with very closely. Rosie began the journey many years ago. She's worked in partner marketing for many years, and I think it's been a journey. I think we started in a certain place with it. We got the confidence from the business, and then we've built from there. And I think that's been the big part of it. So it has been a journey. I think we're only just starting. So I know we were chatting about it behind Hugh and I with some of the things that we want to do next year around what we can do with the data that we have and making it available. So I think it's a journey around it. I think definitely engaging the C-suite on it and helping them to understand the role that it plays is quite key.
I think the term that we're beginning to use as a business is collaboration, is really kind of at the core of what we try and enable, whether that be brands to brands, thinking about how the CPG and the retail worlds can come together to kind of think about how they can garner more insights from the type of data that you've got in order to power the investments that they're making in media. But then equally, the partnerships that you can then create with media platforms as well. So this kind of collaboration around data being an absolutely critical word. As you see that happen how are you seeing the media platforms kind of leaning into how sort of retail media is evolving from a collaboration point of view with your data as well?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting. I think it's probably two parts. So I said about 2 years ago, people really didn't want to talk to me about it. So they weren't really that interested in what we were doing from a retail media standpoint. Actually, wind forward 2 years, and I think it's a very different conversation. So because of the two parts of my job, I work very closely with all the major media platforms, and we talk about both elements now pretty equally. And I think the two things that have driven that, one has been obviously the interest in retail media holistically. I think equally also it's the interest from our CPG partners in pushing those media partners to also look at the opportunity. So I was saying yesterday, I used to work in FMCG for many years. I always felt like I did a campaign, I wasn't sure what was actually going to happen afterwards. And then I kind of waited 3 months for the econometrics and was like, how's it going to perform? I think that's evolved now because of the relationships that we have between first-party data and equally also, media partners with you guys. And I think what that allows us now to do is to open up that opportunity to have much more rapid, much better understanding of effectiveness. And the other thing that's been a big thing for us is placing all our data in one place. So for the partnership we have with LiveRamp, we've taken all of our first party, but we've also put in all of our transactional data. So what it allows us to look at is that on and offline effect. So the other key thing for me is from a retail media perspective, we talk a lot about the digital side of it, but still 80% of transactions in the UK go through the store. And so being able to understand that effect from kind of on to off has been a really big driver of what we've been doing as well.
And I think retail media is kind of really lent in as being that kind of first place where this collaboration is starting to happen. Where do you think this could go in other industries, other verticals? Do you think that there's other opportunities for collaboration around data, collaboration around partnerships between organizations and businesses? And I think it really ties back to that sort of value exchange piece.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the really interesting thing is the planning side of it, and it's the understanding of the customer. And I think what retail media gives us is a very significant data sets where we can understand customer behavior and we can understand what customers want. And I think that extends quite broadly. So, for example, what we understand is, what type of customers are reaching Boots.com and also what type of handset have they got. So we can see all of that information, we can see all of that data. So there could be a use case in the future where a partner like a telco could be interested in understanding the use of that data to understand how they might want to market to their customers. So I think for us, there's a big element on privacy, and there's the right approach that we want to take. But I think in the future, you will see more brands wanting to work together, and I think doing that in a safe environment is a big factor in it.
Cool, great, thank you very much. I think we are almost at time, Justin. So thank you, Ollie. Appreciate your time and sharing your thoughts on where you've been on this journey in the last couple of years.
Thanks, Hugh. Thank you guys as well for coming.